I'm going to tell you something that I've never said out loud in one go. Bits, yeah. Jokes to deflect. But the whole thing? No, you're the first. Maybe because you won't laugh. Maybe because you'll believe me. Or at least, you'll pretend you do, which is good enough. It happened during the spring semester of my junior year. I was a psychology major. The campus was small. One of those colleges where people recognize you, even if they don't know your name. The buildings looked like they came out of a brochure. Red brick, clean lines, trees that lined the quad in a neat square. Pretty enough in daylight, thin in winter, quiet in the spring evenings, except for the flocks of undergrads with Bluetooth speakers and the far-off hum of the highway. I lived in North Hall. Everyone called it Old North, even though it had been renovated twice since the 80s. The rooms were long and narrow, like shoe boxes, and we had those thin mattresses that squeak when you breathe. My roommate Owen was a decent guy, heavy sleeper, kept a fan going at night. He was on the soccer team and kept a bag of oranges under his bed because his coach had said he needed more vitamin C, and I swear to God, our whole room had this faint citrus smell for months. He kind of grounded the place. When he slept there, it felt like a real room. When he was gone for an away game or to stay over with his girlfriend, the walls felt like cardboard, as if a good push would tip us into the hallway. Anyway, the class that mattered here was Research Methods 2 with Dr. Hale. She was tough, the kind of tough that makes you want her approval and hate yourself for wanting it. She wore black turtlenecks and had a way of asking why that made you feel like you were 2 inches tall, but also like, if you survived it, you'd be smarter than you were before. People said she had a breakdown the year before I arrived. That was the rumor. Her husband died in a car accident on Route 7. After that, she went on leave, and when she came back, she was different. The version I got was the post-leave version, precise, tired around the eyes, still brilliant. The big assignment was a semester-long experiment. Pick a topic, propose a study, run it, analyze, present. Everyone tried to pick something cool. Sleep deprivation and memory, color and mood, social priming and generosity. My group was me, a guy named Max, and a girl named Priya. We picked liminal spaces and perceived presence. It sounds pretentious, I know, but we had a reason. People feel weird in empty institutional spaces, like schools at night, office buildings after hours, basements in churches. There's plenty of writing about it online. We thought we'd measure how often people report a sense of being watched in different settings on campus and test whether low-level audio-visual noise changed that perception. White noise, low hums, flicker rates and fluorescent lights, stuff like that. The proposal went over fine. Dr. Hale signed off. We got our participants through the Psych 101 pool. It was supposed to be simple. You walk into a space, stand still for 3 minutes, then move to the next space. Report how you felt. Repeat. We'd recorded ambient noise files and manipulated lights where we could. The spaces, basement of the library stacks, the east tunnel under the Fine Arts building, the old stairwell in Old North that nobody uses because it doesn't go anywhere anymore, and the hallway outside the closed lab in the psych building's 3rd floor. I didn't pick the psych hallway for any special reason. It just had card access, and we knew it would be quiet at night. Plus, we could control the lights. Max knew a guy in facilities and got them to replace one tube, so it had a very light flicker at 60 hertz. It's not totally illegal. Just a swap. I felt slick, like a real grad student. We started running participants in March. We asked them to come at night, between 9 and midnight. The first few went as expected. Awkward smiles, a little bragging about not being scared, a little complaining about the time. People came in, did the thing, wrote Felt Watch 2/5, or whatever, grabbed a piece of candy, left. We were bored. We started telling dumb jokes. We started daring each other to stand in the spaces longer than 3 minutes. It got routine. Then we got the first weird report. It was participant 11, I think. A girl with a backpack covered in anime pins. She did the basement fine. Did the tunnel fine. Started the stairwell in Old North and came out pale. But she checked neutral on the presence scale and called it stupid. Then, the psych hallway. She stepped in, put her back to the wall like we asked, and stared down the hall toward the closed lab. The lab door had a little rectangular window in it with wired glass. You could see a bit of the room beyond. Mostly dark. Some light blinking from a printer. She lasted 1 minute, 50 seconds. Then she came out fast, almost tripping, and said, "I'm sorry, I can't do that one. It smells like bleach in there." We wrote it down. She didn't want to finish. That was the first dropout. We checked the hallway after she left. There was no smell, just that dusty, dry scent, like old paper and plastic. Max said she was trying to get out early. Priya shrugged. I wrote bleach smell in my notebook. Little detail to mention in the final report. Make us sound thorough. It stuck in my head, though. Bleach smell in a locked hallway that we'd been in for 20 minutes and hadn't noticed. 2 nights later, participant 14 said the same thing. Not bleach exactly. Like the pool, he said. Chlorine. He freaked out halfway through and started crying, which was awkward because he was a big guy, and he kept apologizing, and I wanted to tell him it was fine. He kept making this gesture, like he was pressing his hands flat to the wall without actually touching it. "It's behind me," he said. You don't feel that? It keeps coming closer when the light flickers." We told him to sit down. We gave him water. He left with red eyes and didn't take the candy. We added chlorine smell to the note. Priya said maybe the washer fluid from facilities leaked somewhere in the lab. Max said it was psychosomatic. I kept thinking about the flicker. That same night, after we were done, Max dared me to stand there myself for 3 minutes. No timer. Just count inside your head, and we'll stop you if you chicken out. I didn't want to, but I didn't want to be soft. So I stood there against the wall, hands at my sides, eyes on the lab door window. The flicker was barely there. You had to unfocus your eyes to catch it. The hallway had that yellowish light you get late at night when bulbs are old. The tile floor had scuffs and arcs near the walls like years of chairs being moved. The ceiling panels were the drop kind, with small dark holes. And I kept thinking something invisible was on top of them, crawling. About a minute in, I smelled it. Not chlorine exactly. Closer to that sharp chemical clean smell that clings to your hands after you scrub with hospital soap and don't rinse well. The smell had a shape. I don't know how else to explain it. It felt like a line drawn from the space behind me to the lab door window. It felt like I could see the shape if I looked without looking. I forced myself to breathe normally. I told myself we were priming participants by accident, just by setting up the place at night. Timed exposure. Me standing there hyped up by the last guys crying. Of course I'd smell it. Something moved beyond the wire glass window. A brief dark movement, like someone shifting their weight from one foot to another, close to the door, right in the patch of light that the printer blink gave off. It was so quick I could have looked away and missed it. But I didn't look away. My eyes watered. I didn't blink. My tongue felt thick, like it had swollen up and was going to choke me. "There's someone in the lab," I said. It came out thin and flat. I didn't mean to say it. It was like my mouth was reporting without my permission. "No, there isn't," Max said from the corner. "It's locked." "Hey, 2 minutes. You good?" Priya didn't say anything. She was watching my face carefully. She could tell I wasn't doing a bit. I wanted to reach for the doorknob. It was about 6 steps away, 6.5 if you're cautious. I pictured myself reaching out, turning it, looking in. The feeling of being drawn forward was so strong that my knees bent a little on their own like I was about to go. Then the printer in the lab blinked again, a slow strobe, and I saw a reflection in the wired glass. A copy of the hallway overlaid on itself in an off angle, the kind of funhouse mirror reflection where straight lines bend. In the reflection, I wasn't there. The hallway was empty, but in the empty hall reflection, the lab door was open. I took a step back. My heel hit the baseboard. There was nowhere to go. I felt like a cat with its back up, pressing against paper. 3 minutes, Max said. "You did it." I didn't move. Then Priya came over and put her hand on my sleeve and said, "It's okay. Come on." I let her pull me away. I didn't feel my legs. I smelled oranges, and I realized Max had just bitten into one, right then. The peel scent cutting through the other smell. And I had a weird wave of gratitude to him that he'd done something that smelled normal. We packed up fast and left lights on and didn't look back. I barely slept that night. When I did, I dreamed about the printer light, blinking like a heartbeat through dirty glass, and a narrow space between the door and the jamb, and a smell that reached through that crack like fingers. When I woke up, Owen's fan was going, and he was mumbling in his sleep the way he sometimes did. Little half words like "yeah" and "soon." I stared at the dark and thought, I need to drop this study. But we were halfway through. We needed the credits. I needed Dr. Hale to see I could finish something hard. The next week we ran 5 more participants. 3 fine, 2 weird. All the weirdness was in the psych hallway. Nobody got hurt. A few tears, a lot of felt watched 4 out of 5, and felt watched 5 out of 5. Good data, if you're a robot about it. The more we ran, the more I kept noticing the smell that came and went. It seemed strongest when the light flickered. I started asking about it casually. "Did you notice any smells?" Without mentioning specifics. 3 out of 5 said some version of chemical. 1 said pool. 1 said like the building flood from last year. I didn't know there had been a flood. Max said, "Oh yeah, there was a pipe burst in the psych building the year before you came. They closed the 3rd floor for like a month. Mold. They had those dehumidifiers set up everywhere. Mold. Chlorinated water. Dehumidifiers with bleach. Okay. Maybe that was it. Except the smell didn't cling to the ceiling tiles or the carpet. It came and went like a draft. It moved. The last night we ran participants, it was raining. The kind of rain that sticks to windows all day and turns to mist at night. The campus looked like it was steaming. Owen was away with the team. I had a bad feeling about everything. That's not proof of anything. But I felt it in my stomach like I was going to get a test back with a D on it. I almost told Priya I was sick. Instead, I put on my jacket and grabbed an umbrella and went. Max was already in the hallway when I got there, leaning on the wall with a clipboard. He looked pale. I asked if he was okay. He said, "Hale emailed me. She wants us to present early. She says we need to include any anomalies we've observed." "Anomalies," he said, and made a face. "I think she knows we've been getting spooked." "Did you tell her?" I hadn't. Priya hadn't. Maybe she could read it on our faces in class. Or maybe she'd heard something herself. We had 4 participants scheduled. 2 showed. The first was fine. The second wasn't. She was small, with a red rain jacket and wet hair and a messy bun. She seemed nervous from the start. She kept asking, "There's no jump scare, right? You're not going to, jump out?" We promised we wouldn't. She laughed, but it wasn't real laughter. She did the basement. She did the tunnel. The stairwell. She kept wringing her hands and saying, "I'm sorry. I know this is stupid. I'm just tired." When she stepped into the psych hallway, the smell came through like a hot wind. Max gagged. I saw him pinch the bridge of his nose. "It's stronger tonight," Priya said softly. She hadn't mentioned smelling it before. Her voice was too calm, like someone trying not to startle a dog. The girl in the red jacket stood where everyone stood. She had her back to the long stretch of wall. She looked at the lab door window. She kept her eyes on it the way kids look at the scary part of a movie because they know if they look away, they'll imagine something worse. I watched the wired glass. It showed nothing, and then too much. My own reflection, skewed by the wire grid. Max's shoulder, Priya's hair, the long stretch of empty hall behind us that in the reflection looked longer than it was. The light flickered once. The smell pulsed with it. I imagined something exhaling. At 1 minute and 40 seconds, the girl said, "Is someone supposed to be in there?" Her voice was flat, not panicked, just checking. "No," I said. "It's locked." "It just opened," she said. "It's locked," I said again, because I could feel the lock in my hand like I had already touched it, cold and simple, and I didn't want to contradict the feeling. The printer blinked. 3 slow pulses. In the second pulse, there was a shape in the narrow gap of the door. Maybe the angle of the reflection widened the crack. Something like a shoulder, or like a line of darkness that shouldn't be there because the door should be shut. The smell grew sharper, so strong it stung my eyes. The girl took 1 step forward without meaning to. It looked like someone had tugged an invisible string tied to her chest. Priya reached for her and said, "Don't." But she did it. Another step, 2 more, hands out. She put the tips of her fingers on the door like she was feeling for heat. "Don't," I said. I was the closest. I grabbed her elbow. Her skin was cold through the damp jacket. "It wants me to," she said. Not to us, to herself, like she was reporting a weather condition. It once. The door made a sound, so quiet you could mistake it for the building settling. But it wasn't settling. It was something like pressure releasing, like someone's hand flattening on the other side of the door and pushing lightly. The girl's head tilted, as if she were listening through the wire glass. Her breath fogged the pain. The fog didn't fade the way breath fog normally does. It bled downward, thin, like a film of condensation sliding inside the glass. "No," I said. It came out loud. It startled all of us. It startled the girl. She blinked. She looked at me like she was waking up. "You're done," I said. "Step back, okay? You're done." I pulled her gently. She came away. Priya put her hand on the girl's back and guided her to the corner by the vending machine. Max locked the clipboard in both hands like it was a shield. We didn't finish her run. We wrote "terminated due to participant distress." We didn't explain the fog. After she left, after we watched her step into the elevator with her red rain jacket and look back and say, "You're not mad, right?" And we all said, "No, of course not." And then the doors closed. Max said, "We should tell Hale. Now." "Tell her what?" Priya said. "That the door breathes?" "It did," I said. "You saw." She made a short, helpless laugh. "I saw something. I saw us scaring people on purpose in a hallway we modified on purpose. We put a flicker. We set it at night. We picked the most isolated floor in the building. What did we think we were going to get?" "Not that," I said. "We packed up our stuff, because the last 2 participants weren't coming anyway." I was putting the speaker with our noise files into my backpack when the lab door clicked. I'll never forget that sound. It was a small sound. It should have been nothing. People pass in halls, doors settle, HVAC kicks. But this was a specific sound, the softer, slower click of a heavy door that has been closed and now isn't. The kind of click that means a seal is broken. Air pressure equalizes. A tiny pop. It was behind us. The 3 of us froze. No one turned right away. You tell yourself it's better not to look. Looking makes it real. But there's a point where not looking makes it worse. Max turned first. He held the clipboard like a weapon. He said, "It's still closed." He sounded relieved. Priya turned. "It is," she said. I turned. The door was closed. The wired glass showed nothing new. The printer blinked. The hallway reflection was normal. In the reflection, I was there. The door was shut. Everything boring. But the smell was so strong that my stomach turned. It smelled like a pool drained half an hour ago. The bleach residue drying on concrete, sitting in the air like a fog you could flick with your finger. I stepped closer. I couldn't help it. Maybe I thought I'd see the thing that made the smell. Maybe I wanted to prove there was nothing, even though if there had been a guy in there, a real human, I don't know if that would have been better. The glass had a thin line of fog at the bottom inside, like before. It looked like breath that had slid down and pooled. It formed a crooked shape, like a smile too low on a face. I raised my hand. I put my palm flat on the glass. It was cold. The cold bit my hand in a way I still remember when it's damp out. I told myself the lab has lower temperature because no one runs the heat at night. I told myself metal conducts. I told myself. Something tapped on the other side. 3 taps. Fingertips. Not hard. Not like a knock. A check. Here, it felt like. Here, I yanked my hand away. Priya grabbed my jacket and pulled me back. Max said, "We're leaving." And for once, nobody argued. We took the stairs. We didn't run because running is the same as admitting you're being chased. Outside, the rain had gone to a mist. The campus looked indistinct. The library lights glowed warm and fake. I stood there with my backpack straps in my fists and decided I was done with the study. I'd write the report with whatever we had. I'd take the hit. I didn't care about the grade. That night I slept on my side facing the wall with Owen's fan drowning out any other noise. I kept my eyes open longer than I meant to. I kept thinking about the taps. 3 beats. A rhythm. The way you knock on a door when you don't want to wake someone but you need them to answer. I told myself I'd imagined it. I reminded myself how our brains cross wires under stress. I repeated stuff from class like it was a spell. Apophenia, expectation bias, predictive coding. It didn't help. I finally slept near dawn. When I woke up, my palm ached. I looked at it. There were 3 tiny red dots near the base of my fingers in a line. I poked them like an idiot to see if they hurt. They did. Not deep. Just there, like little burns. I washed my hands. They didn't go away. I didn't tell anyone. I put on a bandage even though there wasn't anything to bandage. I went to class. I sat in Dr. Hale's lecture and pretended to take notes while she talked about study design and the importance of not contaminating your participants. I felt like I was going to start laughing in the middle for no reason, the way you do when you're overtired. When class ended, she said, "You 3, a minute." And we stayed in our seats while everyone else left. She looked at us. She looked tired. She said, "I'm hearing from participants that your study is causing a lot of stress." "We're measuring perceived presence," Priya said carefully. "There's some distress." "Distress," Dr. Hale said, like she was rolling it around in her mouth. "Okay. Are you controlling the environment?" "We have a flicker in the hallway lighting," Max said quickly, "because it's worse to lie and be caught." "We got permission to swap a tube. It's steady. It's subtle." She nodded like she expected that. "And smells?" I looked at her. She was watching me. "Smells?" I said. "Several participants mention a strong chlorine smell," she said. "Do any of you smell it?" "Yes," I said. "Sometimes." She looked down at her hands. She had thin hands with veins that stood out like roots on a map. She said, "The 3rd floor flooded the spring before you were here. A pipe burst in the old lab on the east side. It started as a trickle overnight, and by morning the entire hall was an inch deep. Maintenance arrived and turned off the water. They used squeegees. They used the industrial fans. They used bleach. They used more bleach than they needed, because someone told them a student cut her foot on broken glass in the mess. They were afraid of infection. No one said anything. We all stared at her. She said, "There are stories about that floor." "What kind of stories?" Max asked, trying to sound like he wasn't asking. "The kind people tell first years to make them avoid study lounges so they can have them to themselves," she said, and smiled without humor. Then she looked at me again and said, "Your hand." I froze. "What about it?" "Show me," she said. I showed her the 3 little dots. They were darker now, like the skin under them had been sucked up to the surface. She didn't touch them. She said, "Where did you get those?" "I don't know," I said. That was true in the way that matters. I hadn't gotten them anywhere. I had stood by a door. The door had breathed. Something had tapped. And now my hand had 3 marks like punctuation. She said, "You'll stop the in-person portion of your study." "What?" Max said. He sounded offended, like she'd just reached into his backpack and thrown out his notes. "You'll write your paper with what you have," she said. "If you need more data, run an online component. Qualtrics. You can reframe. If you want to argue with me, you can. But you'll be arguing with the IRB after I CC them. And I have other work I'd rather do than sit in a room while you try to make a hallway scare kids for course credit." "That's not what we're doing," Priya said, but she didn't sound sure. Dr. Hale's face softened. A rare thing. "I know. I'm not accusing you. I'm telling you to stop." "We will," I said, relief washing me like warm water. "Okay." She nodded. "Good. Please send me your current notes and I'll sign off on a revised plan." We left. We didn't meet that night. I texted in the group chat that I'd rewrite the method section. Priya said she'd help. Max sent a thumbs up. I opened my laptop and stared at a blank doc. I wrote, "We conducted a mixed methods study," and stared at the blinking cursor until I realized I'd been staring for 20 minutes. Then, 2 things happened that make it hard to keep telling this like a normal student story. And I'm going to keep my language plain because if I try to make it sound fancy, you'll think I'm making it up. The first thing, the marks on my hands spread. By evening, they weren't dots anymore. They looked like little runs, thin downward lines, like when you write on your skin with a marker and then sweat. They trailed toward my wrist. They weren't deep. They didn't bleed. They just existed. They burned a little. When I pressed on them, my fingertip tingled. I put on another bandage. I changed it. I put my hand under cold water and told myself I had some kind of contact reaction. To what? I didn't say. The second thing, I started hearing the taps in other places. Not loud, not all the time. In the shower, above the rush of water, 3 soft taps on the tile from the other side. In the library stacks while I was writing, 3 taps from the end of the aisle, like someone knocking the edge of a book back into place. In bed around 2 a.m., right when the building's heat clicked off, 3 soft taps under my mattress, like fingers on wood. I didn't tell anyone. If you tell someone that there's a rhythm knocking under your bed, you make it more real. That was my logic. Also, I was ashamed. I'd been supposed to be the calm one, and now I was the crazy one. I told myself, sleep, eat, finish the paper. You're stressed. It'll stop when you stop feeding it. It didn't stop. On Thursday, I went to see Dr. Hale during office hours, not to tell her, to ask about the revised report. But when I sat down in the chair across from her desk, I felt like a little kid at the nurse's office. I must have looked bad because she said, "Are you all right?" "I'm tired," I said. I laughed. It sounded too loud in the small room. Do you ever hear noises when you're falling asleep? Like, you know that thing where you hear a bang that isn't there? Hypnic jerk? Is that what it's called? She watched me. "Sometimes," she said. "Not lately." "Yeah," I said. "Same." I rubbed my hand on my jeans leg so I wouldn't pick at the bandage. "I'll send you the notes." "Do," she said. She hesitated. And if you want to, I don't know. If you want to talk about anything else, I'm good, I said too fast. Thanks. She nodded. Good. I stood up to leave. My backpack strap caught on the chair and jerked. I stumbled. My hand hit the edge of her desk. The bandage peeled up. The marks showed, dark and thin, like ink that had seeped into wood grain. She saw. She didn't say anything at first. She said it with her face. She nodded once like she'd made a decision. Then she said, "Where are they worst?" "Here," I said. And because I had already said more than I meant to, I added, "At night. In my room." "In North?" she said. "Yeah." "Which floor?" "Fourth." She thought. "The flood," she said. "They closed the third floor mostly, but water came down into the second, and the fourth pipes share a run." She was talking to herself more than to me. Then she said, "Can you change where you sleep for a night?" "I can maybe crash in Max's room," I said, but I didn't want to. Not because of Max. Because the idea of the Taps following me to a new space was worse than staying where they knew me already. She must have read that on my face. "Come with me," she said. "Where?" I asked. "Just come," she said. "Bring your backpack." I followed her out of her office, down the hall to the elevator. We went to the third floor without talking. When the doors opened, the smell hit me like a slap. It was faint. I bet most people wouldn't have noticed. But once you know a smell, you know it. I looked at her. She said, "You don't have to." "It's fine," I said. I didn't know what I meant by fine. The hall looked normal. A couple of faculty office doors, a bulletin board with flyers for grad programs and summer internships, the lab door with the wired glass. It was closed. The printer had a new paper tray. She walked past the lab. I fought the urge to watch the glass as we went by. At the end of the hall, there was a door that said, "Faculty only." She took out a key and opened it. Inside was a small supply closet with shelves, paper towels, boxes of gloves, a big jug of industrial hand soap with a pump. The smell of bleach was stronger here. She took a pair of nitrile gloves and put them on. She took another pair and handed them to me. "What are we doing?" I asked. "I'm going to show you something," she said. "And then you're going to leave it alone." "That's usually my move," I said. She didn't smile. She crouched and moved a box aside on the bottom shelf. Behind it, there was a cutout panel in the wall, about the size of a shoebox lid. It had been screwed in and then unscrewed. The screws were in a plastic cup beside it. She removed the panel. Behind it was a dark space. Not a lot of room. A crawl, maybe a foot deep, between the wall and something else. I couldn't see what. Pipes? Ducts? It was dark and a lot colder than the closet. The cold came out in a little gust. I tasted chemical. My whole face tensed up the way your face does when you bite a lime. She slid her gloved hand into the hole. I almost grabbed her wrist and yanked her back, but I didn't need to, because she only put it in up to her knuckles, and then took it out again. On the blue glove there was a smear of something. It looked like old water, but thicker. It sat on the glove and didn't drip. Clear, with a faint bluish sheen, like windshield fluid, but not. The room smelled like the pool room of a cheap motel. She held her hand so I could see the smear. "What is that?" I asked. Condensate, she said. That's what I told facilities last year. Probably condensate. She wiped the smear onto a paper towel. It left a darker stain than it should have. What do you think it is? I said, because the way she'd said probably made me feel like a kid testing a fence and finding it electrified. There was a flood, she said. Water goes where water goes. It remembers paths. It finds the points that are lowest. Sometimes it leaves things behind. Smells. Stains. Sometimes it leaves attention. Attention, I repeated like an idiot. She looked at my hand. You shouldn't go near the lab. You shouldn't be on this floor at night. Finish your paper. Don't tell your participants stories after. Don't stand waiting for 3 minutes looking for something. We're done, I said. I swear. She slid the panel back into place. She didn't put the screws in. She just pushed it so it sat snug. She stripped off the gloves and put them and the paper towel into a zip seal bag. She put that bag in another bag. She sealed the second bag. She put it on a high shelf like it was a sample she didn't want to forget. Go home, she said. I left. I went back to North. I tried to nap. I dreamed I was standing in the hallway again, and when I looked down at my palm, the lines were not lines anymore but letters. Not in English. More like lines that implied letters, like a child's version of writing. I woke up with my heart beating so hard I felt sick. I looked at my hand. The marks were still marks. I breathed. I told myself I'd imagined the letters. That's what our brains do when we get hungry for patterns. They feed themselves. I wish I could tell you that it ended when we stopped the study. That would be neat and tidy. It didn't end. It changed. The first change was that the smell stopped showing up in the hall for me. I'd pass by the psych building and it would be normal. Even in the third-floor hallway, I could go by during the day and smell nothing but coffee from someone's office. But I started smelling chlorine in other places. In the stairwell of Old North, once, late at night, passing between second and third floor. In the library in the middle of the stacks when I reached for a book about cognition. In the shower when I turned off the water and the last drip fell. In my room when the radiator ticked. The smell would come and go like a thought you don't mean to have. It didn't belong to that hallway anymore. It belonged to me. The taps kept up for a week and then changed too. They went from a rhythm I heard to a rhythm I felt. You know how? When someone is behind a door and taps with their fingernail on the other side, your bones feel it more than your ears. Like a little electric line through your arm. It was like that. In my hand. In the 3 spots where the marks had been darkest. One night I woke with my arm numb under my pillow. And when I pulled my hand out, the bottom half of it wasn't there. I don't mean it was gone. I mean it didn't register to my brain as something I owned. I saw my hand. I knew it was mine. But it felt like when your foot falls asleep so deep you could snap your toes and not feel it. The 3 marks looked raised in the bluish light from my laptop. I touched them with my other hand. I felt a touch on one side, but not the other. I panicked and shook my hand until pins and needles shot through it. When feeling returned, it came back in waves like cold water, and with it came the smell, strong enough that I gagged. Owen rolled over and said something in his sleep that sounded like, "Stop." That was the night I went downstairs to the laundry room, the one with the concrete floor and the humming machines. and stuck my hand under the tap. It ran cold. I ran it until the burning dulled. The bleach smell was so strong down there that my eyes watered, even though I knew it was only detergent and the weird industrial cleaner the janitors used. I pressed my hand flat to the steel of the sink. The steel felt right, clean, quiet. I stayed like that until my spine hurt from hunching. When I stood up, my hand smelled like metal. I preferred that. I told myself I'd go to the health center if I got a fever, or if the marks broke the skin. They didn't. They looked like stains. People get stains on their skin. I Googled contact dermatitis and then slammed my laptop shut because the pictures made me nauseous. I told myself I'd let them fade and never touch that door again. I meant it. We wrote the paper. We presented early. Our slides were ordinary. Our graphs were ordinary. We framed the results as expected. Participants reported higher perceived presence in settings with low-level flicker and ambiguous sound. We noted the limitations. We thanked the volunteers. Dr. Hale nodded once. In the Q&A, someone asked if we would try other manipulations, like temperature. I said, no, too fast. And people laughed because they thought I was joking, and I laughed too. And it felt like being underwater and seeing your own bubbles. After I stayed behind, I told Max and Priya I'd shut off the projector and bring the HDMI back to the office. They left. The classroom felt too big without them. I unplugged the cable. I wound it carefully. I turned to put it on the desk and nearly ran into Dr. Hale. She doubled back. "How's your hand?" she asked. "Better," I lied. "It's fading." "Good," she said. "Keep it out of those spaces." "I am," I said. "I swear." She nodded. "Good." Then she said very quietly, "I should have stopped you sooner." "We chose it," I said. "I know," she said. "But I could have told you a story and I didn't. I don't like telling stories to students. It puts things in your heads. But sometimes there's already something in your heads, and it's less dangerous to call it by its name." "What name?" I asked. She didn't answer. She looked past me at the empty rows of desks. The windows showed the quad. The trees had little green buds. She said, "Go home." I went home. Here's the part you can choose not to believe. It happened the last week of classes. Spring finally felt real. People were throwing frisbees on the quad and wearing shorts even though it was 50 degrees. Owen and his girlfriend had a fight and made up, and then had another fight. Max sent me a meme that made me choke on my coffee. Priya got her internship acceptance, and we went to the cheap Thai place to celebrate. I started to think maybe I had been dramatic. The taps hadn't happened for a few days. The smell hadn't been strong either. I let my guard down. I slept. At 2:31 in the morning, I looked at the clock later. I woke up because someone said my name. Not loud, not a shout. My name in a conversational tone, as if I'd asked a question and someone was answering me. "Evan," the voice said. "Yeah, that's me. We can skip the fake names now. I'm tired of them." It said my name like it had said it before and I'd heard it. I thought it was Owen. I rolled over. His bed was empty. The fan was going. The room had that dim dorm light that comes from the crack under the door and the street lamp outside. I said, "What?" Out of habit. You know how you do. Your body answers before your brain is in the room. The voice was closer. Evan. It came from by the door. No, the door itself. The wood. The thin metal around the window. 3 taps came after it, slow and almost polite. My throat went dry. I didn't move. The fan rattled. The clock glowed. I tried to say, "Who's there?" and made a breathy sound like a broken recorder. The voice said my name again, but not like Evan. Like the shape of my name had been learned from the inside out. Like you learn a word when you read it before you hear it, and guess at the sound. Aven. It was wrong and right at the same time. It hurt my teeth. I imagined Owen thinking it was a joke and filming me, so I forced myself to sit up. I said, "Who is it?" For real this time. My voice worked. It sounded like mine. No answer. Just a soft scuff. Like someone leaned their head against the door, and the wood complained a little. I got out of bed. I don't know why. I should have stayed. I should have kept the covers over my head, and I should have sung loudly and stupidly until it left. Instead, I stepped on the cold floor and went to the door and put my hand on it, palm flat, over the little rectangle where the peephole was. The wood was cool. The cool went through my hand and a line to my shoulder. The 3 taps came, not on the door, on my palm, from the other side. I snatched my hand back. I almost screamed. I clapped my other hand over my mouth. I backed away. The door didn't move. The handle didn't turn. The voice didn't say my name again. It made a soft sound like a laugh. Not a laugh you hear in a bar. A laugh when someone is surprised to find you home. A laugh when someone cracks a window and thinks, "Oh, there you are." Then the smell came. Not locally, not at the door, but around me, like the air had been mixed and poured in. I could taste it on the roof of my mouth. Chlorine, bleach, pool, flood, fans, paper towel, industrial gloves, a whole story in a smell, a whole hall, a whole building. A thin line of cold slid down the inside of my forearm, the way the fog slid down the wired glass. I wanted to call campus safety. I wanted to bang on the wall for the guys in the next room. I wanted to text Max. I wanted to do none of that, because then it would be real. I stood there breathing shallow while my body tried to decide if it was going to pass out. In the silence, I heard the smallest sound, metal sliding against metal. Not the door, the vent above the closet, the little screws that hold the grate. A soft, patient turn. I looked up. The grate was dark. The room was still. The sound didn't repeat. The fan rattled. My clock ticked over to 2:32. I waited. I don't know how long. Eventually, I climbed back in bed, as if bed is magic. I pulled the covers up to my chin. I kept my eyes open until dawn. When the light finally turned everything flat and harmless, my head hurt like I'd been clenching my teeth all night. My palm looked normal except for the 3 faint marks, which were barely visible now. That day, I made myself go to the psych building. You can call it avoidance therapy if you want. I told myself I was going to do what Dr. Hale would tell me to do if I were her patient. Treat avoidance. Don't let the association root. So I went to the 3rd floor at noon, with students around and faculty doors open and someone laughing on a phone. The lab door was open. That was new. The lights were on inside. The printer was off. The wired glass looked like a harmless grid. I stood in the doorway. I didn't go in. The room had been cleaned out. New desks, new smell, paint and carpet glue, no bleach. A note on the door said, "Room reassigned, Cognitive Science Lab." Under it was a list of faculty and a number to call for access. I felt something loosen inside me that I didn't know was tight. I laughed. I don't know why. I think I'd needed the world to change in a way that acknowledged me. That was it. Someone had named it something else. Someone had painted. Good. I turned to go. Down the hall, Dr. Hale was standing with a man from facilities, a guy with a cart and a ring of keys that clinked when he walked. She saw me. She lifted her chin in hello. I lifted mine back. We didn't speak. I left the building. I went to the library. I wrote a little bit of my paper that didn't matter to anyone but me. I watched a stupid video. I bought a coffee that was too sweet and drank it anyway. I tried to go back to normal. That night I slept quickly. I think I relaxed too hard because I fell into that deep, dry sleep where you don't dream. And when I woke up, it was not because of a voice or a smell. It was because my hand hurt. Not on the skin. Inside. Like a toothache in my palm. I turned on my lamp. The room looked the same. The fan did its fake ocean. I looked at my hand. The 3 marks were very faint again, but between them, thinner than before, there was a new line. It wasn't darker. It was the opposite. It looked like someone had bleached a thin path on my skin. When I pressed on it, my fingertip tingled. I made a noise that didn't sound like me. I sat there with my hand open, like I could let the feeling fly out. The air smelled normal. The door was a door. The vent was as it had been. I thought about going to the health center again. I pictured explaining. I pictured the nurse nodding in that way nurses nod when they're going to test your urine for drugs. I pictured getting a cream. I pictured the cream doing nothing. I pictured the line getting longer. I got up. I put on shoes. I put on a hoodie. I left the room. The hall was empty and smelled like old pizza. The exit sign made the light green. I went down the stairs and out the back and crossed the small lot behind North and the patch of grass and the sidewalk and went around the back of the psych building to the service entrance where the loading dock is. I don't know why I went that way. It felt like the way you go when you don't want the building to see you. The door there is metal and has a crash bar. It was locked. Of course. I stood there a minute with my hand on the metal and tasted the ghost of a smell that could have been anything. Then I heard the printer. Not the real printer. There was no way. It was the sound the lab printer had made the whole semester. The wake noise when someone sends a job. The little whir. The 10-second pause. The click. It came from the metal of the door. It came through my hand like a message. I flinched so hard my shoulder hit the frame. I left. I walked to the library. It was open 24 hours during finals. Students slept on couches with their heads on backpacks. The coffee shop wasn't open, but a student group had a table with donuts. I took one I didn't want and ate it while I stared at my hand. I sat at a computer and tried to read an article, then tried to watch the security guard do a crossword, then just watched my hand until the pain was a dull pulse. At some point, I must have fallen asleep sitting up. I jerked awake at 6 a.m., with sugar dried on my fingers, and a line of keyboard keys imprinted backwards on my wrist. When I went back to North, the hallway smelled like cologne and toothpaste. Owen was asleep. He had kicked off his blanket. I put the blanket over him, and he mumbled thanks without waking. I went to the sink and washed my hands. The new line was still there. When the water ran over it, it felt colder in that strip. I dried my hands. I pressed my fingers flat on the mirror and looked at my face, which was puffy and tired and older than it should have been. I'm almost done. I don't actually know how to end this cleanly. Things didn't build to a big fight. There was no confrontation where I figured something out and banished anything. What happened is I graduated. Time passed. Finals came. We got our grades. Our paper got a B+, which made Max mad and made me relieved because I didn't want it tied to anything called A. I moved out of North. I threw away half my stuff and packed the other half with a weird tenderness, like my clothes were the only witnesses who knew my side. On the last day, I went to the psych building one more time, in daylight, with parents taking pictures on the quad and someone blasting Journey from a portable speaker. The lab door was propped open. Students in goggles were setting up a maze for a rat. The smell in the hall was dry marker and coffee. The wired glass had been replaced with clear glass. The printer was new. I stood in the doorway like a ghost and nobody noticed me. I said good under my breath. And I meant it the way you mean it when you come out of anesthesia and count your teeth. Good. All there. I didn't go to the closet with the panel. I didn't go to Dr. Hale's office. I didn't go to thank her or accuse her or ask her if she believed me. I went to the lawn and let my mother take a picture of me with my gown unzipped and my tie crooked and my hair in my eyes. I smiled. It looks real in the picture. That summer I moved to a different city. New smells, new pipes, new dryer hum. The marks on my hand faded to almost nothing. If I show you my palm right now, you won't see them unless I press hard, and then the 3 spots show up like a shy bruise. Some nights when the apartment is very quiet and the neighbors are out and it's raining enough to blur the traffic, I wake because something taps 3 times. It could be anything. Pipes, heat, my own pulse in my ear. I tell myself it's that. I say it out loud. It helps. The smell comes once in a while, more when I'm tired or when I'm in a building with old tiles and lights that flicker. I tell myself about the flood, about bleach, about memory and attention, and the way we prime ourselves without knowing. Sometimes I dream about the lab door, not the door itself. The gap. In the dream, I'm standing in the hall, and I put my ear to the crack to hear better. And something on the other side is putting its ear to the same place, listening to me, not trying to get out. That's the important part. Not trying to come through. Just listening, like it has a study too, like it checks on me, like I'm in its data. When I wake from that one, it's not always bad. I lie there and smell my pillow and hear the refrigerator hum in the kitchen and feel my hand on the sheet. I tap the mattress 3 times, not for it, for me, to count, to say I'm here. I've thought more than once about writing to Dr. Hale. Not to ask anything, to say thank you. She stopped me. She told me to leave it alone. She didn't put a story in my head. I don't know if telling you now is putting a story in yours. Maybe it is. But I think if you're a person who has stood in a hallway at night and felt your spine go cold and told yourself it's just the lights and the pipes, you already have the story. I'm just giving it a different ending. The ending is, I'm fine. I go to work. I eat breakfast. I call my mom. Sometimes I avoid basements. Sometimes I don't. I still like the smell of oranges It cuts through almost anything. But there's one thing. I feel like I should say it, because if I don't, I'll be holding back. Last week, this is new, I was in the grocery store. They were mopping near the frozen foods with some cleaner that smelled like a hotel pool. I stood there with a box of waffles in my hand and watched the mop make a long wet path. The fluorescent lights flickered, barely. You wouldn't have noticed unless you were already tuned to it. A kid went skidding past in socks and his mom yelled. A man in a hoodie reached into the pizza case. Normal. 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 And then, over the loudspeaker, buried in the ad about pineapples being 2 for $5, it said my name. Not the right way. The wrong right way. Like the mouth that practiced on it had been practicing for a long time. I looked at the ceiling and laughed, because what else do you do? The guy in the hoodie looked at me like I was the crazy one. The mop left a shine that looked like breath when it slid. I bought the waffles. I went home. I ate them without syrup. I washed my plate with hot water that smells a little like the pipes in the building. I tapped the counter 3 times. I didn't hear anything back. I hope I never do. But if I do, here's what I'm going to tell myself. I wasn't the only one in the experiment. I'm not the only one now. And somewhere, in the space behind walls, in the tight run of ducts and pipes and old water tracks, something has a clipboard and is patient and takes notes and smells like bleach because that's what was poured on its head when it woke up. It's not angry. It's not anything human enough to be angry. It's careful. It wants to know if I'm still here. I am. For now. And if you ever smell it late at night, if you're in a hallway and the light flickers and you think about trying the door, don't. Go home. Turn on a fan. Peel an orange. Sleep with your hand open against the sheet and feel your pulse where the marks would be. And if you hear 3 soft taps under your bed, tap 3 times back and pretend it's only you. That's what I do. Most nights it works. And if it doesn't, if it ever doesn't, I guess I'll text you. Or I won't. That might be better. Some stories don't want to be told and retold until they're smooth. Some are sharper when you hold them less. This one cuts, but not deep. Just enough to remind you that the line between a study and a haunting is thinner than you think. You stand in a hallway for 3 minutes, and the hallway stands in you for the rest of the semester. Then you graduate, and you take the hallway with you. Anyway, that's it. That's the whole thing. You can believe me, or not. Either way, if you smell chlorine where there shouldn't be any, don't go looking for the source. It already knows where you are. It started with a missing hoodie. That's stupid, right? We live in student housing. Things go missing all the time. People borrow stuff by accident. Laundry rooms swallow socks. Roommates take things without thinking. It wasn't even a special hoodie. Just navy. The school crest peeling off. The pocket stitched bad on one corner. I bought it from the campus bookstore orientation week. I wore it to class. To late night runs to the vending machine, to the gross lounge downstairs where the couch eats remotes. The week before midterms, I couldn't find it. I did that thing where you tear your room apart. You know how it goes. Check the back of your chair, under the bed, lift the mattress like maybe it crawled under there, open every drawer twice. I even checked the dirty laundry basket, which was basically a biohazard at that point. Nothing. My roommate Sam told me I probably left it in the study rooms at the library. He said it all casual, like it was a normal suggestion. But he didn't look at me when he said it. He was making ramen with the electric kettle, which you're not supposed to do. And he had this tightness in his shoulders, like he was bracing for something. I noticed it because I notice dumb things when I'm anxious. People's shoulders, the way their voices sit too high. He had that, and he wouldn't turn to look at me. "You okay?" I asked. "You look, I don't know." "Midterms," he said. "Just tired." That night I went to the library to check. There are these glass study rooms on the first floor, like little fish bowls where everyone can see you and judge. I don't know why we all book them like they're prize seats. Maybe the illusion of privacy. Maybe the outlet situation. I don't know. I had booked room 12A the night the hoodie went missing. I remember because the booking app kept crashing and then finally let me reserve the last slot. 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. I was writing a draft for my sociology class, something about protest movements that I don't even think my professor read. I checked Lost and Found first. You've seen it. Plastic bin, laminated sign, smell like lemon cleaner and old paper. The student worker on duty didn't even look up from her phone when I asked. She just pointed at the bin with a fingernail painted silver. No hoodie. Wired-only earbuds. A calculator with someone's initials scratched off. 2 water bottles with cloudy plastic. 1 economics textbook from like 2013. The cover bent like a broken wing. No hoodie. Then I went to room 12A. The door was unlocked because it's a door with just a handle. The lock is the app, not the hardware. There was a stack of ugly chairs in the corner and a dry erase marker with the tip crushed. The lights were too bright. You know how library lights make your skin look like you died last Thursday? Like that. I checked under the table like an idiot. Then I checked the little gap between the table and the wall anyway. Nothing. I stood there longer than I needed to, just listening to the air hum. There's a vent in those rooms that always sounds like a low breath. It made me think of someone standing on the other side of the wall, listening, not moving, breathing softly so you won't notice. It's weird how fast your brain goes to that place. You think there's nobody there. Then you think, but what if there is? I found the hoodie on my chair when I got back to the dorm. It was folded. Not a messy fold either. Folded like you'd do if you were being careful. The sleeve with the frayed thread tucked in so it wouldn't snag. The crest facing up. I stared at it for like a full minute. Then I did something even dumber than I already felt. I picked it up and smelled it. Not gross smelled it, just, you know. It smelled like the 3 places I spend most of my time. Our room, laundry detergent and dust. The library, that weird cleaned through smell. And something else. Like cold metal, I guess. It reminded me of the elevator doors if you put your nose right up to the seam when you're 8 and bored. Don't laugh. I'm just telling you what I remember. "Hey," I said to Sam, who had his headphones in and his laptop open with like 8 tabs of calculus problems and a YouTube video paused on a guy explaining integrals with Lego bricks. Did you put this here?" Sam looked at the hoodie and then at me. He was halfway through saying no when he changed it to maybe. That sounds small, but we've lived together since September, and I know the shape of his words. That was a lie. or a dodge. I don't know. It was something that wasn't true. You okay? I said again. He nodded too fast. Yeah. I just want this week to be over. People fold your hoodie for you all the time, right? People do nice roommate things. He could have picked it up from the back of the chair and folded it. Maybe I missed it when I looked earlier. That's what my brain kept saying. That, and you need to stop making stories out of nothing. You're not special. You're just tired. I should have listened to that. I should have forgotten the hoodie. But I didn't. Because once you feel something tiny tilt wrong, you start to see every angle. You know that feeling? Like you're walking in a funhouse and the floor is a little slanted and your legs have to work to keep you steady. And it's embarrassing even though nobody's watching. It was like that for a couple of days. Everything a little tilted. On Tuesday, I heard my name on the library PA system at 2 a.m. I wasn't supposed to be there that late. The library shifts to after hours at midnight. You have to swipe your student ID to get in, and the outer doors lock behind you. I wasn't pulling an all-nighter. I had gone in with Jess from my sociology class to finish a shared doc, and then we got distracted. That happens too easily. 1 minute you're writing about social movements, and the next you're looking up a video of a raccoon washing cotton candy under a faucet. By the time Jess left, I was so close to finish that I figured I'd just stay. I booked a study room out of habit. 6B. I like that one because it's at the end of the hall, away from the printing station where people have meltdowns. So I'm there in 6B, trying to tell myself that my intro doesn't suck, when the intercom clicks. I didn't know there even was an intercom in those rooms. It clicked once, like someone tapping a microphone, then twice. Then I heard my name. Evan, it said, quiet but clear. You know how comedians on stage have that little echo to their voices because the speakers are above you? It had that. Evan, please come to the first floor front desk. For a second, I actually started putting my stuff in my bag, because that reflex is strong. Grown-up voice says, come here, you go. Then my brain caught up. When front desks talk to you. And also, the way it said my name was, I don't know. There was a tone to it, like someone who knows you well and wants you to think it's normal to do what they say. Not a stranger reading it off a screen. I did something else stupid then. I said, why? I just said it to the ceiling like the voice could hear me. There was a pause, maybe 2 seconds. Then the intercom clicked again. You left your hoodie, it said. I don't know why that hit me so hard. The back of my neck went hot, like someone had put their hands there. My hoodie, the same navy one, was folded on the chair next to mine. I'd brought it. It was right there. I stood up without knowing what I was doing. The door to the study room has that narrow strip of glass. All the study rooms do. It's like a one-way mirror from your side at night, because the hallway lights are dim and the room lights are bright. You're in this lit box, and the hall is dark. You can see out a little, but mostly you see yourself. If someone were standing right against the glass, you'd see them. But if they were 2 steps back, you know. I walked to the door and pressed my hand to the glass, because that's what people do in horror movies when they're dumb. And I guess I was dumb. The glass was cold. I thought I saw movement across the hall, like a shadow shifting. It could have been anything. The vent turning on, a screensaver, a person. I turned off the light. There's this weird thing that happens when you kill the lights in those rooms. The glass stops being a mirror and goes plain. The hallway floods in. The dark turns into shapes, and your reflection becomes a faint ghost instead of the main thing. I don't know why I did it. I just needed to see. There was nobody there. At least I didn't see anyone. The hall was empty. There was a fire extinguisher, the soft blue glow of the emergency exit sign at the far end, the corkboard with flyers, tutoring, free pizza, mental health resources, no motion. The intercom clicked once, then again, like the sound of someone testing whether you're still listening. Then nothing. I went back to my chair. I made myself finish the paper. I told myself the night worker at the front desk had a weird sense of humor. I told myself Jess had put someone up to it. I told myself a lot of nice, reasonable things. Then I put my hoodie on and walked home, even though it was cold and my brain kept telling me not to. When I got to our floor, I saw the RA clipboard hanging on the wall by the elevator. The sign-out sheet for the vacuum had my name on it at 3:05 a.m. My handwriting. But I hadn't signed it. I hadn't vacuumed anything in my life at 3 a.m. The vacuum was still in the closet with the key on its hook. I woke Sam up because I needed another brain to tell me I was being stupid. He squinted at the clipboard like he couldn't read yet. He said my name looked weird, loopy where I usually print. He said maybe someone was messing with me. He said maybe I'd signed it earlier and forgot. He said maybe a lot of things. Then he said, "Do you ever feel like someone's walking right behind you? But when you turn around, it's just nothing?" "Everyone feels that," I said. "It's called being a person." "Yeah," he said. And I could hear the relief in his voice. "Yeah." The next morning I told myself, sleep, go to class, stop being whatever this is. I went to my 9 a.m. with Professor Bennett, who has a beard like a broom and says, "I'm going to push back on that," when he thinks you're wrong. I sat in the middle so I wouldn't have to make eye contact. I kept my head down and took notes like a good kid. About halfway through, Bennett said something about liminal spaces, places that aren't one thing or another, and I felt my stomach pull in. He was talking about sociology, about migration and identity, but I kept thinking about the hall outside 6B, the glass that's a mirror until it's not, the dark that's empty until you notice where it is and where it's not. After class, I checked my email, and there was a message from the library. Subject line, study room policy reminder. Body, please remember that study rooms are for students with confirmed reservations only. Failure to vacate a room when your time ends may result in a temporary ban. Below that was a timestamp, 11:26 p.m. the night before. Below that was my name. Below that was a note. Patron refused to leave at end of reservation. Repeatedly stated, "I just need a few more minutes," to empty room. Knocked on glass when asked to exit. Ban applied. 48 hours. I didn't refuse to leave. I left at 11:18 on the dot, because I'm the kind of person who leaves when the little countdown on the room tablet turns red. I also didn't knock on the glass. The phrase "empty room" didn't land right either. I stared at the word empty for a long time. It felt like a joke I didn't get. I went to the front desk with my student ID ready and my reasonable guy face on. The student worker that day was a guy I recognized from my dorm, tall, thin, hair that looked wet even when it wasn't. He checked the system and shook his head. "Sorry, man. It says you were observed." "Observed by who?" I said. He shrugged. "Night staff." "What's her name?" I said. "The woman who works late. The one with the silver fingernails." He looked at me like I'd asked what puberty felt like. "We don't have a woman on nights. It's just me and Dooley this week, and Dooley's on break." "But I saw..." He shrugged again. "People do that when they can't or don't want to help you." I said I'd appeal the ban like that was a real thing. He said okay, and handed me a form that looked like it had been photocopied since 1995. "Fill it out. Put it in the box. You're going to think I'm making a big deal out of little things. Maybe I am. I'm telling you because the little things add up. 1 stone, 2 stones, 5 stones on the scale, and then you notice the weight." That afternoon I took a nap. I set my phone alarm for 40 minutes, the perfect number my sister swears by. I woke up to the sound of the vacuum. It took me a second to place it because nobody vacuums during the day. They wait until 10 p.m., so it's annoying. The vacuum sound was right outside our door. I checked the time. 3:05 p.m. Not a ghost hour, not anything special. Then the vacuum stopped. There was a pause. Then someone knocked. 3 quick taps, like a kid who's learned to knock but still doesn't get it. I opened the door. There was nobody there. No vacuum. The hallway was empty, except for the RA clipboard swaying slightly like someone had just brushed against it. When Sam got back from his lab, he told me I looked peaked, which is a word he must have gotten from his grandma. We ordered pizza and put on one of those true crime shows where they always say, and then the investigation took a chilling turn, right before a commercial. I kept thinking about how those cases start. It's always nothing at first. A missed call, a misplaced thing, a coincidence. That's the day I messaged Jess. "Did you play some kind of joke on me last night? Intercom stuff?" She wrote back, "What intercom?" Then, "I left at 11. Then, "Are you okay?" I said I was fine. I told her about the band because it was an easier story. She said, "That sucks," and sent a picture of her cat wearing a bandana. I showed it to Sam and he said it looked like the cat was in a gang, and then we laughed too hard. At 1:12 a.m., my phone buzzed with a calendar alert. Not one I set. It said, "Study in 6B." The location was the library. The alert was set for 1 hour before. I don't use the calendar app. I do what everyone does. I remember something until I forget it, and then I panic. So this alert, it shouldn't have been there. Then again, I've accidentally clicked weird things before. Maybe I clicked. I don't know. The thing that got me was the invite list. There were 2 people on it. Me, and someone named Library Night Staff. No email address, just that name. You know how you can't help yourself but click the thing that scares you? I clicked. There wasn't much to see, just the name. No color coding, no notes. I tried to remove it. It wouldn't let me. It said, "You don't have permission to change this event." I turned my phone off. I told myself that would help. At 2:10 a.m., the fire alarm in our building went off. You know how that goes. Screaming beep. Everyone pouring into the hall with blankets and bare feet. People laughing and filming. The RA with a flashlight pretending they're in charge. We shuffled down the stairs and stood outside in the freezing air. I stood with my arms crossed, hugging myself in the hoodie. I thought, at least it's on me this time. At least I know where it is. The fire trucks came and then left without sirens. False alarm, like always. While we were nodding and shivering and filing back in, Sam leaned close and said, "Feel that?" I said, "What?" He said, "Someone's breathing on my neck." I turned around fast. There was nobody behind him. There was a girl from our floor yawning so hard her eyes watered. There was the RA playing with the handle of the vacuum closet key. There was nobody close enough to breathe on him. When we got back to our room, the door was propped open with my hoodie folded on the floor as the wedge. I cannot explain to you the exact kind of wrong that looked. I can give you facts. The door was open when we left. We don't do that for fire alarms. People grab things. The hoodie was folded. I don't fold it as a doorstop. It wasn't dirty. It looked fresh from a drawer. But facts won't touch the feeling. The feeling was like someone using your toothbrush. The feeling was like the sound your mom makes when you call, and she pauses too long before she says hello. Sam bent to pick it up. "Don't," I said too loud. He froze, surprised. He asked if I wanted him to. What? Not pick up fabric? The silence felt dumb and heavy. He picked it up anyway and handed it to me. I took it. There was a white thread stuck to the cuff, long and almost translucent. I pulled it off and it stuck to my finger like floss. I don't know why I remember the thread so clearly. Maybe because it made me think of something practical and normal, like a sewing kit. Maybe because I've been trying to find edges that make sense. The next day, I went to the library with the hoodie in my backpack. I don't know what logic I was using. Maybe I thought returning it to the scene would fix something. The 48-hour ban was still on, but nobody stops you from sitting at a regular desk. I planted myself on the second floor, where the windows face the quad, and you can see people crossing like ants. I kept telling myself, daylight, people everywhere, nothing scary. Around 4:30 p.m., I saw movement down in the quad. A campus tour group, the kind where the parents hang back and the kids try to look cool. The tour guide was walking backwards. She had a bright scarf. She was saying something and pointing at the science building. I watched one kid nudge another and point at me. I don't think it was me, actually. I think it was the window. But in that second, I felt like an exhibit. Student in natural habitat. Library, hoodie, hunch. I got up to go refill my water bottle. When I came back, my bag was unzipped and the hoodie was folded on the desk beside my laptop. The zipper tab was lying next to it. It had been pulled off, not broken, slid off the track, which you can do if you know the trick. I looked around. No one was paying attention. That's the thing about libraries. Everyone's alone, together. I picked up the hoodie. It felt a little damp, not wet, damp like it had been in a cold place. I put it on because I wanted whoever to know they hadn't freaked me out. This is dumb, I know. I wanted to win some game I didn't understand. At 5:12 p.m., I got an email from campus police. Subject: Community Safety Notice. Body: There have been several reports of attempted theft in the library after hours. Please do not leave valuables unattended. If you observe suspicious behavior, contact blah blah. There was a description: tall male wearing a navy hoodie with school crest. I stared at the screen for a long time. I was wearing the hoodie, the exact one. I thought, someone is making a version of me that gets in trouble. I thought, maybe someone is using the hoodie like a mask, I thought. I should take it off and stuff it in a trash can. I didn't. That night, Jess texted me a TikTok of someone filming an empty study room and claiming it was haunted because a chair moved a little. I almost typed, "It's not haunted," but I stopped. I didn't know what words to use. Haunted wasn't right. Inhabited, maybe. Occupied. Claimed. Do you remember the news from last year about the tunnels? They always said it like that. The tunnels, like a fairy tale. People kept posting blurry photos of hatches in the library and the auditorium, like someone was living under us. The school denied it. Then campus maintenance admitted there are access tunnels for pipes and wiring, because of course there are. The library is old and was updated 3 times. You don't rip up floors if you can snake new lines underneath. Everyone laughed and moved on. I didn't think about it. I do now. On Thursday, I booked 6B again the minute my ban expired. I shouldn't have. I know that. But I needed to look straight at the thing and stop flinching every time a door clicked. I told Sam I was going to the gym in case he wanted to come, and then I left with my backpack. I got to the library at 10:02 p.m. because I wanted the place to be mostly empty, but not deserted. The person at the front desk scanned my ID and smiled. I'd never seen her before. She had short hair and a scar on her eyebrow, like she'd tried to pierce it and changed her mind. Her name tag said L. Ortega. She said, "You're the guy who writes in the same room every time." It sounded almost like a compliment. "I like 6B, I said. "It's quiet." She tilted her head like she was thinking about something she didn't know she knew. "It's not the quiet one," she said. Then she blinked, like she didn't mean to say that, and smiled too wide. "Enjoy your study time," she said. I walked down the hall. The building at night hums. It's all HVAC and distant printers and the sound of your own blood. The glass rooms were mostly dark. There was a couple in 4C whisper fighting, heads too close. There was a kid asleep in 9A with his cheek on his textbook, the kind of sleep that leaves the imprint of text on your face. 6B was dark and empty. I turned on the light and shut the door. I set my things down. I took out the hoodie and put it on the chair across from me. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb and told myself I'd stay an hour. I opened my laptop to a blank doc. I typed the date, October 12th. I typed what I remembered: the hoodie being folded, the intercom, the vacuum, the email, the calendar alert. I figured if I wrote it down, it would read like a bad joke, and I'd be embarrassed, and that would be the end of it. At 10:18, I heard the knock. Same 3 taps as the day of the fire alarm. Not on the door, on the glass. I froze. It wasn't loud. Someone tapping a fingernail, maybe. I looked up. There was nobody in the hall. I did the light trick. I stood and turned the switch off. The room went dark. The hall became visible. Empty. The intercom clicked softly. I said, "I'm not playing," because I wanted the sound of my own voice to make me feel like an adult. It came out thin. The intercom said, "Please keep your voice down." I swallowed and put my hand on the doorknob. I told myself I'd open it and the hall would be normal, and I'd leave because this wasn't worth the adrenaline. I turned the knob. It wouldn't turn. The door was unlocked. There is no lock, but it wouldn't open. It felt like someone was leaning on the other side, holding it shut with their shoulder. "Hey," I said, Let me out. No answer. I pushed harder. Nothing. I put my shoulder into it. The glass went a little white at the edge with pressure. I stood back and looked at it like maybe I could see weight. There was just me, small, in the reflection. The lights clicked back on by themselves. The door opened easily. The hall was empty. From the front desk, faint, I heard Ortega say, "Hello? Hello?" Like she'd picked up a phone and gotten dead air. I left right then. I went straight down the hall, past the flyers and the fire extinguisher and the printer jam signs. I didn't run, but I walked the way you walk when your shadow is wrong. Ortega looked at me like she was trying to place me. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," I lied. "I'm tired." On the way out, I glanced at the whiteboard by the door, where there's always a messy, "Take what you need" with sticky notes. Someone had written, "Don't go in the walls." The note was crooked. Someone had stuck it over an older one. I lifted the corner. Underneath it said, "Please stop tapping." I didn't sleep. Sam didn't either. He tossed and turned and muttered, and once I heard him say, "No, I can't," very clearly. In the morning, he couldn't remember. At least that's what he said. He had a lab practical and needed to be there early. He left me a post-it. "Good luck today." I stuck it to my laptop and stared at it for too long. Yellow paper, thin ink. The simple kindness of the thing made my chest hurt. I told myself I was going to focus. I had a quiz and a discussion. The world keeps moving, right? You can have your little personal horror movie and still have to talk about Durkheim like you slept fine. I went to the coffee shop. I got a plain bagel. I sat near the window. Then I made the worst choice I've made so far. I opened the campus subreddit. There was a thread titled, "Whoever is messing with 6B, stop." The OP wrote that someone keeps booking the room and then leaving messages. They didn't say what kind of messages. The comments were what you'd expect. "It's the ghost of midterms. Maybe a squatter lives in the vents. Do not summon things you can't put back." Lots of jokes. One comment was just a question mark. Another said, "Check the ceiling tiles." Another said, 6B doesn't exist on the original floor plan." That last one made me cold. I clicked the username. It was new. 3 days old. No other posts. I went to class like a person. I answered 2 questions in discussion. I watched a girl bite her cuticle until it bled, and then put the hangnail on the edge of her desk like she'd created something. I walked back across the quad and avoided stepping on the school seal because someone once told me it's bad luck. Then I went into the library again. I know. I keep doing the thing you're not supposed to do in the movie. But if it was between avoiding the library forever and finding out the shape of this thing, I wasn't ready to choose forever yet. I didn't book a room. I sat at a normal table near the stairs. I took the hoodie out and folded it on my lap, like a kid with a blanket he's too old for. I told myself I would sit there until the feeling passed. Ortega saw me and lifted a hand in a half wave. The kid with the wet hair whose name I don't know walked by and didn't see me. People came and went. At 2:07 p.m., a man in facilities coveralls came through the gate, carrying a toolbox. He was older, maybe 50. He had the tired mouth that people who work with their hands have. He went straight to 6B. He didn't knock. He looked up at the top corner where the ceiling tile has a faint crack. He stood on a chair and pushed the tile up with both hands, and carefully slid it to the side like a surgeon. Then he reached into the space above and did something I couldn't see. He stood very still like he was listening, then climbed down, put the tile back, and left. He didn't look around. He didn't speak to the front desk. He didn't write anything on a clipboard. He was in and out in under 5 minutes. You know how hard it is not to go over there after that. My whole body was a wire pulled tight. I went anyway. I didn't go in. I stood outside 6B and looked at the corner of the ceiling. The crack was gone. Or maybe it was too small to see unless you were up on a chair. I looked down at the floor and saw a little smudge near the baseboard. A dark line. Maybe grease. I touched it with my finger because I'm gross. It was sticky and faintly metallic smelling. My finger smelled like pennies afterward. "Can I help you?" Ortega said. She hadn't snuck up. I just hadn't heard her over my own pulse. She had a look on her face like she wanted to help, but also wanted me to leave. That's a hard look to wear. "Do you know what the deal is with this room?" I asked. It came out like I was 20 years older than I am. She glanced at the door and then at me. "What do you mean?" "The intercom, the knocking." "We don't have intercoms in the rooms," she said. She said it fast, like a line she'd been told to stick to. "I heard it," I said. She pressed her lips together. "If you want quiet, 10A is better," she said. "It's more normal." "What does that mean?" "More normal." She looked around. "I'm not supposed to talk about it," she said. Then, "Some of the rooms sit on the old network. They patched over some stuff when they renovated. Pipes, wires, old. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's not dangerous. It just carries sound." "Carries sound from where?" She didn't answer. She was looking past me, down the hall. I turned. The facilities guy was at the far end, standing still, looking at us. Not in a menacing way. In a "this is a busy day and you're in the way." He gave a little nod, as if we'd agreed on something privately, then turned and went down the stairs to the basement. "The basement's closed to students," Ortega said, like I might go after him. "Water damage." "I won't," I said. But of course I wanted to. Of course. That night Sam didn't come home. He texted me that he was staying in the lab to finish something. I sent back a thumbs up and a stupid joke about him inventing a better ramen. At 2:30 a.m., he sent a photo of a whiteboard covered in equations and smiled like he was trying. At 4:12 a.m., he sent "head home soon" and a ghost emoji. At 6:40 a.m., I woke up with my phone stuck to my cheek and no new messages. I told myself he was sleeping on the office couch. I told myself he was an adult and I wasn't his mom. I told myself a lot of not helpful things and then put on my shoes. It was still dark when I walked across campus. The emergency blue lights made the sidewalks look bruised. I tried the lab building first. It was locked. I texted, "Let me in?" No answer. Then I went to the library because of course I did. The door was unlocked. It shouldn't have been. The sign said, "After hours. Access. Swipe required." The swipe machine was off. The lobby lights were low. The front desk was empty. The whiteboard said, "Take what you need," and the sticky notes were all blank. I walked down the hall to 6B because I needed my life to be smaller, and that room is a box I could draw around myself. The door was open. The light was off. "Hello?" I said, even though I didn't want an answer. I put my hand on the frame. It was cold. There was a sound like water running far away. Not a drip. Something steady. Pipes. I thought of Ortega saying Carrie's sound. The air smelled damp. I stepped in. It felt like crossing a line. The moment both my feet were in the room, the door shut quietly behind me. Not a slam. A push. I turned around and grabbed the handle. It turned easily. The door opened. The hall was empty. My brain did a quick ugly flip, like when you miss a step in the dark and your stomach drops. "Sam," I said. Stupid. I don't know why I said his name. It was like saying Mom when you're scared. The water sound got a little louder. I looked up at the ceiling tile the facilities guy had moved. It looked normal. Square, off-white, too porous. I don't know what I thought I'd see. A face, a camera, a hole. There was a knock. Not on the glass. Above me. 3 quick taps. A pause. 3 more. I stepped under the tile. I'm not tall, but I can reach the ceiling if I jump. I jumped like a kid trying to slap a door frame and hit the tile with my palm. It moved a fraction. I jumped again, harder. The tile slid a little. A dark space opened above me like a mouth. A breath of cold air came down. It smelled like pennies and dust and something sweet that had gone bad. I pulled a chair under the tile. Don't say it. I know. I stood on the chair and pushed the tile up. It went askew and balanced on the frame like a lid flipped back. The space above wasn't big. An adult can't crawl up there easily, but you could wriggle. There were pipes wrapped in silver insulation, wires in plastic bundles, dust thick like the air had weight. Also, a little rectangle of light, very faint, like there was another cavity with some kind of glow. "Hello?" I said, quieter than before. The intercom clicked. It was above me now, not on the wall. "Please sit down," it whispered. I almost did, because my body wants to do what a voice like that says. It's like when a teacher uses your name. I gripped the edge of the ceiling frame until it dug into my fingertips. I saw movement then. Not a face. Not a rat. Something flat and pale, like a piece of tape, sliding along a pipe. No, that's not right. It was cloth. A strip of it, long and thin, snagged and fluttering. It looked like the white thread I'd found, but thicker. It was trailing from something tucked up there. Something soft. Something folded. I reached up and grabbed it because that was the worst thing to do. It came free with a little tug. It was a piece of shirt. Not from my hoodie. From a white button-down like the ones kids wear to presentations because they think looking official will make the words come out right. It had a little rusty stain on it. It smelled like a locker room, but older. The intercom clicked twice, long and slow. The water sound stopped. There was a whisper right next to my ear. Not in the intercom. In the room. It said, "Don't." I stepped off the chair so fast it scraped and fell backward. It hit the floor hard and one leg bent and it lay there crooked. I stood very still. The door was open. My heart was too loud. I ran. I'm not ashamed to say it. I ran down the hall, past the empty desk, out into the morning, which had turned gray. I felt like if I looked back, I'd see something lean out of the ceiling space and watch me go. I didn't look back. I went home and found Sam asleep in his bed, shirt and shoes on, the hoodie, my hoodie, under his head like a pillow. I stood there and watched him breathe. His mouth was open. He made a noise on the exhale like a kid with a stuffy nose. He didn't wake up when I said his name. He didn't wake up when I sat on my bed and stared at him until my eyes watered. He woke up at noon and said, "Oh, hey," like he'd just come back from the bathroom. "Where were you?" I said. "In the lab," he said, like that explained everything. I wanted to be mad. I didn't know how. Instead, I said, "Do you remember writing my name on the vacuum sign-out sheet?" "What?" he said. "The other night." He made a face. "I mean, maybe. We were cleaning the lounge after the pizza thing. Did I do that?" "Sorry, dude. I was delirious." "You signed my name," I said. He shrugged. "I can't draw a straight line at 2 a.m. "Did you come into the library with me?" I said. "What? No." "Did you fold my hoodie?" "Dude," he said. That one word was tired and affectionate and annoyed. "I don't care about your hoodie." That night, after Sam went to a party I didn't want to go to, I got a message from an unknown number. It was just a photo, the study room whiteboard. The words, "Please stop tapping," written small, repeated over and over like lines of punishment. In the lower right corner, a date, 2003. The photo looked old, taken on a flip phone maybe. There was a shadow in the corner with a shape that could be anything. Could be someone's shoulder. Could be nothing. The number had no name, no country code weirdness. I stared at it until my eyes wouldn't focus. Then I wrote, "Who is this?" The 3 dots bubbled, then disappeared, then bubbled again, then nothing. You think I'm going to say I went to the basement? I didn't. Not then. I went to the counseling center. I felt stupid walking in there. It's free, you know. That's the pitch. But you have to show your ID and sit under a poster about stress that makes you feel stressed. A grad student in a cardigan brought me into a small room and gave me water in a paper cup and asked me to talk. I tried to make my story sound boring so she wouldn't think I was being dramatic. She nodded a lot. She asked me how much sleep I'd been getting. She asked if I ever lost time. That phrase stuck. Lost time. Like a sock. Like a pen. Like the hour between 1 and 2 when the clocks change. When I left, she gave me a handout about sleep hygiene like I was a plant they could move into better light. I walked across campus thinking, people don't disappear. Not really. They just slip into places that were always there. And maybe those places slip into them. 2 days later, a girl in my sociology class didn't show up. It wasn't a big class, the kind where people notice when you're out. Jess leaned over and whispered, "She's always in 6B. I said, "Who?" She said, "Mira. You know, the one with the highlighter tattoos." I didn't know. I pretended I did. After class, Jess showed me Mira's Instagram, a grid of notes and coffee and those "here's my study setup" shots where the lighting is too good. The last post was a boomerang of her writing midterms jail on the 6B whiteboard. The caption was just a skull. The comments said, "Ugh, same. You got this. See you on the other side." Then nothing. You're waiting for me to say she was found in the tunnels or whatever. I don't know what happened to her. She didn't show up the next class. Someone said she took a withdrawal. Someone said she went home. Someone said she was in the hospital. The school didn't say anything. The subreddit talked a lot, and then stopped talking, and moved on to a debate about whether the burrito place changed their salsa recipe. But at night, if I lay still, I could hear a faint tapping through the wall. 3 quick taps. Pause. 3. If I pressed my ear to the drywall behind my desk, I could hear it a little better. Not loud, not aggressive, just there, like someone telling you they are still in the room. I tried to ignore it. I tried to be a person. I did okay. I did great, even. A couple of days. I went to class. I wrote a paper that got an A-. I washed my sheets like an adult. I watched a movie with Sam and Jess, and we all made fun of the plot. Then, the night before Halloween, I got another calendar alert I hadn't set. Room 6B, 10 p.m. Invitees, me and maintenance. The location was blank. The notes field had one word, return. I showed it to Sam and said, haha. He didn't laugh. He said, delete it. I said, it won't let me. He said, don't go. I said, okay. Then I went. I told myself I was going to stand in the hall and look. That's all. I'm not a hero. I'm not anything. I just can't stand not knowing what's looking at me when I'm not seeing it. At 9:58 p.m., I was in the library. Ortega wasn't at the desk. The wet-haired kid was. He looked tired. 6B's light was off. The door was closed. I stood across the hall with my back to the wall and stared at the little dark rectangle of the room. I counted my breaths. Every time a printer kicked on, I flinched. At 10:01, the intercom clicked and said, please return what you borrowed. I didn't borrow anything, I said out loud. The kid at the desk looked up sharply. I mouthed sorry. Please return it, the intercom said. You have had it long enough. A long time passed then. Or maybe it didn't. It's like when you're sick and every minute is a different shape. The hall felt too long. I kept expecting someone to turn the corner. Nobody did. The door to 6B opened a crack. I didn't move. I don't think I breathed. The crack widened. The room was dark. The chair I'd knocked over was in the corner, still bent. The ceiling tile was in place. The smell was there. Pennies, dust, that sweet edge. Please return it, the voice said. What? I said. It didn't answer. The door stayed open. I stared at the table. It was empty. Then my eyes adjusted and I saw something small in the middle. A thread. White. Thin. Coiled like hair. I know. I went in. I did it because I couldn't stand being in the hall waiting for the door to close on my face. I went in like I was walking into a bathroom at a party. Quick, with purpose, pretending it was normal. I picked up the thread. It stuck to my finger. It didn't want to come off. I dropped it on the floor. I turned to go. The door shut softly. The intercom clicked twice. You have to leave that, the voice said. You can't take anything out. I didn't take anything, I said. I'm not taking the hoodie, it said. I laughed then, because it was so weird. I mean, yeah, I had the hoodie on. I always had the hoodie on. It was cold. It was mine. I bought this, I said, at the bookstore. It's mine. Please return what you borrowed, the voice said. Then, please take a seat. I didn't sit. I reached for the door. It didn't open. I was so tired of that. I stood there with my hand on the handle like a kid testing a fence. The intercom hummed quietly, like it was thinking. Then the light went off. Have you ever been in a room that's truly dark? Not city dark, not house in the suburbs dark, but inside the belly of a whale dark. It was like that. The air felt thick. The door was under my hand, and suddenly I wasn't sure where the knob was. I put my other hand out and touched the glass. It was colder than it should have been. There was a sound above me. Not the water. The soft drag of fabric. The whisper of someone moving their hand across carpet. Then a breath that wasn't mine. "Please sit," the voice said, very close. I did. I couldn't see the chair. I sat anyway. It scraped under me. The bent leg made it tilt. I put my palms flat on the table. Something soft brushed the back of my hand. Not a bug, not hair, cloth, like a sleeve. "Take it off," the voice said. "No," I said. "Please," it said. There was the faintest pressure on my shoulder, like the weight of a small hand that has never been warm. It pushed, not hard, just enough to make me feel the outline of where I end. I reached up and grabbed the hem of the hoodie because that's what you do when something you can't see touches you. I don't want to tell you I started crying, but I did. A little. Not sobbing. Just that ugly throat-tight thing where the snot comes faster than the tears. It was embarrassing, and I was alone, but also not alone. "Please return," the voice said again. It sounded more, I don't know, human, tired. I took off the hoodie. I held it in my lap. The pressure on my shoulder lifted, like someone relieved. The air in front of me felt, this is going to sound fake, busy, like a lot of small movements at once. The hoodie got lighter, then heavier. Then it wasn't in my lap anymore. I hadn't felt it leave my hands. It was just gone. The chair creaked, a little sound to my right, like someone settling their weight. The hoodie brushed my knee as it moved. That's the part I remember every time I close my eyes. Not the voice, not the dark. The feeling of the fabric grazing me as if someone else was wearing it and hadn't realized how close they were. The light came back on. The door opened. The hoodie was folded in the center of the table. The sleeves were tucked in. The crest was face up. The white thread lay next to it like a line drawn under a word. The chair beside mine, the one that had been bent, was now straight. I stood. My legs shook. I looked at the hoodie. It looked like itself. It looked like something you could wash and wear. It looked like nothing at all. I left it on the table. On the way out, the front desk was still empty. The whiteboard still had blank notes. The air smelled like lemon cleaner. I don't know what time it was. The clocks all said different things. The door opened without a swipe. When I stepped into the night, I felt like I'd been underwater. I didn't tell anyone exactly what happened. Not Sam, not Jess. I said someone stole my hoodie and then put it back. I said I was rattled. I said I was sick of the library. The truth felt like a song nobody else knew the tune to. When I tried to hum it, it sounded wrong. For a week, things were quiet, like when a fight ends and the room holds that charged silence. I slept. I didn't go into any study rooms. I did my work in the lounge with the ugly couch and the RA vacuuming at 3 p.m., not 3 a.m. We carved pumpkins in the kitchen and mine looked like a wound and everyone said it was cool. And Sam smiled like a real person. I thought, maybe the thing is done with me. Maybe it got what it wanted. Then I got an email from a name I didn't know. Subject, presentation feedback. Body, thank you for meeting after hours in 6B. I've attached notes. There was an attachment. I opened it because I'm an idiot. The notes were about a presentation I had done the day before. They were accurate. They were harsh but fair. The signature said, L. Ortega, Night Staff. There was a handwritten line under it, scanned. Please stop knocking. I went to the library that afternoon to find her. The day staff said she wasn't on the schedule. They said they didn't know an Ortega. The wet-haired kid said he covers nights by himself most weeks. I said her name slowly, like maybe it would conjure a memory. He shrugged. He nodded toward the corkboard. You could leave a note, he said. I wrote, Thanks for the feedback. I stuck it on the board and felt like a kid leaving a tooth for the tooth fairy in a house that has never believed in that kind of thing. That night, I dreamed about a hallway under the rooms, narrow, with pipes low enough that you had to duck. There were doors set into the walls, thin and tall like school lockers. They opened from the inside. I woke up with my heart going hard and a certainty that I don't know how to explain. The certainty was this. The library is not a building, not really. It's a nest. It has layers. Things live in layers. The next day, I skipped class and went to the archives. You can laugh. It's fine. The archives are in a separate room on the lower floor, behind a desk where they make you put your bag in a locker. The woman there was older, with hair like steel wool, and a sweater with leaves on it. I told her I was looking for floor plans from before the renovation. She brightened like I'd asked about her grandkids. She brought me a big flat folder and a little magnifying glass, and left me alone with the crunchy maps of the building as it had been. There were rooms not there now. Rooms labeled storage, where the study rooms are. A break room where the bathroom is. A long, thin corridor labeled service. There was a mark next to what is now 6B. A circle with an X. The key said, Access. I took a photo. The woman came back and said I couldn't take photos, and I said sorry, and she softened and told me about a student who once tried to steal a letter from 1920, and we laughed. Then she said, They sealed things up. It's safer that way. What did they seal? I said. She looked at me like she was weighing whether to tell me a ghost story. There was a death during the renovation, she said. A worker. That's what I heard. Fell or got caught in something. You know how rumors are. The school doesn't talk about that kind of thing. What was his name? I said. She shrugged. I never knew. I didn't go back to 6B. I didn't need to. The hoodie was gone, and with it something that could push me to go places I didn't want to go. I started using 10 amps like Ortega said. It's boring. The light hums. The vent clicks. I can hear talking sometimes, but it's just pipes, and the world sitting on the roof. Last week, though, I was in there and I heard the intercom click. Just once. A soft test. Then nothing. I waited. My skin felt too big. After a minute, I stood and turned off the light. The hallway came into view. A girl was standing outside 6B. Just standing. Not moving. She wore a white button-down and a navy hoodie tied around her waist. She looked like all of us in that way we look the same when we're trying. She raised her hand and tapped the glass 3 times. Pause. 3 times. Then she laughed, like a small mean laugh you do to yourself. She turned and walked away. She didn't look in at me. She didn't look back. I wanted to bang on the window and tell her not to. I wanted to run after her. I did neither. I stood there with my hand on the light switch and did nothing until my arm hurt. I think the study rooms are not as sealed as we want them to be. I think sound and air and sometimes other things move through the building in lines we can't see. I think someone died in there, or near there, or under there. I think they didn't get buried in a regular way. I think our stuff, our hoodies, our notes, our dumb habits, give them shapes to wear and doors to open. I think sometimes we borrow more than we know when we take a room and make it ours. I think we all knock sometimes without meaning to. We tap our pens, we bump our chairs, we drag our sleeves across the table, and it sounds like a hand on drywall. We say each other's names into machines that go places our voices shouldn't go. We look into glass that's a mirror until it isn't. We leave a thread behind when we pull our arms away. We fold things and hope someone sees the care we took. We want witnesses. We want to be seen. That doesn't change when you can't leave a room. If you're waiting for a moral, I'll give you the boring one. Don't stay late alone. Don't book the same room every night because patterns make paths. Don't ignore the RA when they say stop doing stupid things. Keep your hoodie. Or don't. I don't know anymore. I haven't bought a new one. I wear a jacket with buttons that are hard to undo, and when I take it off, I stuff it into my backpack like it owes me nothing. Sometimes I hear the vacuum at 3:05 in the afternoon. It's always 3:05 when I look, which means it's probably not real. Sometimes I get a calendar alert with no name on it, and I decline it, and it disappears. Sometimes I wake up with that feeling that I've been walking behind myself, and I check the whiteboard note above my desk that says, "You are here." It helps. A little. Tell me if this sounds like I'm losing it. Tell me if what I'm describing is just stress and bad sleep and the way campus makes you a little hollow sometimes. Tell me it's not a real thing in the walls asking us to be neat and quiet and to return what we've borrowed. Tell me that if I hear my name on the intercom again, I should ignore it. Say it out loud to me, please. Say, "Don't answer." And if you ever study in 6B, don't roll your eyes, just listen. If you sit in that room and someone taps on the glass in that pattern we all know without knowing we know, don't tap back. If the intercom clicks and tells you to return the thing you don't remember taking, don't argue. Just leave. If the door doesn't open, sit very still. Put your hands on the table so they can see them. Let them fold whatever they need to fold. Let them put things back the way they like them. When they're done, they'll open the door. If you feel breathing on your neck when you're standing in a crowd during a fire alarm, don't turn around fast. Turn around slow. Look at eye level first. You won't see anything interesting. Then look down. Sometimes the shape that's there is smaller than you think. Sometimes it's just a folded hoodie, and the heaviness you felt was yours. I'm okay. I think I'm okay. I'm eating. I'm going to class. I'm not sleeping great, but who is? When I pass the library at night, I walk on the other side of the quad. I don't look at the windows. The glass glows like aquarium glass. You can see people moving inside, tiny fish going in circles. Sometimes, if I stop, I think I can hear tapping. It could be printers. It could be nothing. It could be someone writing their name on a sign-out sheet with someone else's hand. If you want the happy ending, here it is. Finals ended, and nobody I knew disappeared. And Sam passed his lab with a B and bought me a coffee with a dumb foam heart. The hoodie stayed folded in 6B, or it didn't. I haven't checked. The intercom doesn't know my name anymore. The calendar invites have stopped. Jess's cat ate a ribbon and had to go to the vet, and we all Venmo'd $5, and the cat was fine, and life kept going. And also, here's the ending. I can't say out loud without my tongue going dry. Sometimes when I'm walking home late, I see a figure ahead of me wearing a navy hoodie with the crest peeling off. They walk with this particular slouch I know down to the ache between my shoulders. I don't speed up. I don't call out. I let them get farther and farther ahead until they turn the corner by the library and are gone. When I get to that corner, I don't look down the hall. I don't look at the whiteboard. I keep going. Because I've returned what I borrowed. Because you can't keep a thing that doesn't want to stay. If you're ever here and you hear your name on the intercom, pretend you're asleep. Pretend you left your phone in another room. Don't go up to the desk. There's nobody there. Don't open the study room door. The hinge is too quiet. Don't turn off the light unless you're ready to see. And if you feel like someone is standing right behind you and breathing soft so you won't notice, you don't have to prove they're there. You can just say, softly, like you're telling a secret to the glass, "I know." Then sit down. Put your hands where they can see them. Wait. It's not forever. It just feels like it will be. That's the whole thing. That's all I've got. If you don't believe me, that's okay. If you do, I'm sorry. I wish I'd kept it to myself. But it's worse when you're the only one who hears the tapping. You asked for a student horror story. This is the only one I know how to tell, because it happened to me. And because some nights I still hear the intercom click once, softly, like it's checking if I'm there, like it's reminding me to return what I borrowed, and to take what I need, and to please stop tapping.